converted man here. Hi, I'm Deconverted Man. Alright, so let's go back to the Skeptic Bible Study series thing that I've been looking at. And we're going to be talking about the resurrection of Jesus. Because that's a thing. Now, I debated this topic at least once, and the link for that's in the description of this, if you want to go check that out. What's weird about that debate is, like, S.J. Thompson hosted it, so it's you see her and you see me, and you don't see the avatar of the guy I'm debating. It's just really weird. But basically, the debates pretty much always, in essence, it's this. The Bible has 4 accounts-ish, 4-ish accounts of the story of the resurrection, you know, and how do you explain these events as if these events really happened? And so they'll say things like that historians, whoever that is, just anonymous historians, all agree on these facts that Jesus died and he was buried, and then the followers came to believe that he came back from the dead. Those are the facts. And then the only way to resolve those facts is, well, obviously Jesus really came back to life. But no. First of all, it's a story. Why should we think that any of it happened at all? What I know, the only thing I know is somebody somewhere wrote down that this occurred. And then sometime later someone else wrote down their version of what they thought occurred, and somebody else later on wrote down their version. And that happened like at least 4 times, maybe more. But what we cannot establish is that the event actually happened. Now, that's a problem in history. Well, but when we have written history of this or that, do we doubt it? Well, we could. We generally don't when that history is normal or mundane. Now, if you took the book, Gone with the Wind, and you stripped it of the things that made it seem like a book, you might be convinced that that was actual history. But there's certain tells, I think, in that would clue you in that you're not reading a historical piece. It's like this all-seeing narrator that knows events that none of the people in the book could have known. None of the people in the story could know what's happening outside of their circle, right? So these people over here are having this conversation. These people over here are having this conversation. Well, who's recording that? You can't. How many people are supposedly listening in on these conversations? You have to have multiple people at that point. And then it's so clearly recorded, so accurate, so detailed. It's like, nah, I think that gives it away. But nothing outlandish happens, so it could be real history. But if you did the same thing with Harry Potter book, you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd say, well, okay, some of this maybe seems realistic, but then they start using magic. So this doesn't belong in history. No matter what I do with it, it doesn't seem to really be history. It seems, at best, to be mythology. Because we don't have an example of magic. And until we do, we're going to have to classify it as mythology. And mythology has other traits to it. Usually there's a creation story of some sort. there's some moral story to be had, or moral messages, or things about what to do or not to do. You know, there's different tells for ways of categorizing mythology. And certainly the Jesus narrative, it falls into that. Now, the Christian doesn't like that, because the Christian, of course, believes their religion is the actual true right religion. Everyone else got it wrong. They got it right. I was listening to this rabbi, and he sounded, I'm going to do a video on it. There's already a video done by somebody else, and I'll go into it more. But the rabbi sounded so skeptical up until when it came to his religion. And when it came to his religion, it was like all this skepticism was off the table, no longer applied. It was like, yeah. All this skeptical stuff is great for the other religions, but of course, you should use the Torah to understand God. Of course, he doesn't say God, because Jewish people don't say God. So, and he didn't use the word Torah, but at any rate, that's what he meant, the Old Testament. Anyways, so why? Well, because it's his religion. And then somebody in the comments was saying to me, but our religion is the only religion that makes the claim that the entire nation received this revelation from God. And Christians will make this claim, like, our religion is the only religion where somebody dies for your sins and then comes back from the dead. And it's like, other religions, like, our religion is the only religion that does fill in the blank, as if that makes it true. No, being unique doesn't make it true. Otherwise, I would say that Scientology, with the most amount of unique claims, would therefore be true. It doesn't matter what the claim is, though. We have to know that the thing happened. Anyone can claim anything. That doesn't make it true. Well, but we've had this oral tradition for thousands and thousands of years. That doesn't make it true either. So what? Somebody made up a story. Well, come on. Nobody would believe you if you said that God revealed itself to the entire nation when they're part of the nation. No, well, maybe. But the story changes over time. Maybe they said, God revealed itself to me and said to make the nation of Israel. The nation hasn't been created yet, so God hasn't yet revealed itself to all the people of Israel, because there is no Israel yet. Okay, well, let's make Israel. Okay, we'll start it right here with me. I'm the first person. God revealed itself to me. I'm the only person of Israel, so God revealed to all of Israel that it exists, to the one person that's in it, which is me. Because I said, this is Israel, starting today. This spot that I'm in is Israel. And God revealed itself to me. There you go. All of Israel has received the divine revelation. But, of course, the person that believes that it's true can't see any possible mundane explanation for it. It has to be, well, broadly speaking, it has to be this other thing. It has to be that my religion is right and all the other ones, they're wrong. We got it right. Everybody else got it wrong. God revealed itself to us, to me, whatever, and all the other people, they just got it wrong somehow. And the Bible, a collection of stories by anonymous people for the most part, was carried through oral tradition until somebody somewhere found the writings. And then someone else put those writings together. I often ask Christians who did that, when, and where, and I don't get an answer because they don't know, broadly speaking. Very, very few actually know the answer, or even where to find the answer to that sort of critical question. But you would think that they would know, because they say that the Bible is the Word of God. And so that is like, whether it's inspired by God or written by God or however you want to think about it, then you're telling me it's the most important book in the world, but you don't know its history at all. You don't know anything about how it got to be where it is today. And that's where the faith element comes in. Because you don't need to know. You don't need to know any of that. Why you don't need to know that to be saved. It's not important. You can be dumb and be saved. But if you're going to tell me that this is the most important thing in the world, then you better act like it's the most important thing in the world, or I'm not going to believe you, because I'm going to think, if you're not acting the way that I would act, if I thought any given book was the most important book in the world, I would know everything there is to know about that book that I could know. And if I couldn't store it in my head, I'd certainly have it on my computer ready to go, oh yeah, that's it. So then I, piles of papers or whatever, notes and stuff, because it's so important. If it's the most important thing, then I'm going to act like it's the most important thing. But that's just me. Well, why do I bring all this up? Well, it's the story of Jesus. The resurrection event is the cornerstone in Christianity. Now, the story says something really interesting. It says, if Jesus didn't come back from the dead, then your faith is in vain. Now, why would it bother to say that? I think that that's pretty obvious. If what we said happened didn't really happen, then it's all bullshit. Well, duh! You don't need to say that. So why would you say that? Why would you say in the story that, hey, by the way, everybody, just so you know, if we made up the story is made up? We know! Why would you tell? It's so weird. But I think that whether it was deliberate or accidental, I don't know. But it's a very clever mental trick. Because you have already spent your time and energy invested into the story thus far. And so you get into this place where you've put in so much energy and time that getting out of that is like, no. It's the sunk cost fallacy is what it's referred to. I've sunk this much time and energy into it, so I better keep going. And then to be told, if this event didn't happen, then all of that's in vain, then it weirdly reinforces all the belief again. It's like now it's sunk in even further. That's what I think is going on with this sort of text, and the reason why it says that at all. I could be wrong. Maybe it just says that because it sounded good to say, or maybe that's what they believed, or maybe in order to make the belief happen, to make the belief important, they said, no, Jesus really died and came back from the dead, and if you don't believe that, then your faith's in vain. And they didn't believe that before, but now that the guy said it, now they're going to start believing it because they don't want their faith to be in vain. Who knows? What I do know is that no matter how well established the chain of custody of these records were, even if it was today, an event was happened today, and somebody was right there and immediately wrote it down and as the event happened, there's still problems in written documentation that you're not going to find in a recorded audio video documentation. Now, maybe they're really, really good at describing the event as it transpires. But when you read it, you're going to translate in your own head what you're reading. So that's already a problem. Now, you might do the same thing when watching a video. There's a problem there as well. So it's difficult to record and then deliver that information to somebody else in such a way that the information doesn't become corrupt at some level. And even though you're listening and watching this right now, you're not necessarily going to remember like the first word I said at the beginning of this video. And you're like, well, I'll rewind to see what the first word. I don't have any idea what the first word was. Well, actually, I do. And maybe you know offhand because you're good at memory or something. I don't know. But the longer that goes on, if you had to tell somebody else and that person has to tell somebody else and you have this oral tradition, it's going to degrade. We know that. We've seen that happen. Even if it's written, it's going to degrade. It's going to change. Even the best thing, which I think audio video recording, even that might not be like, even though it's pretty much top tier, I think, even that's going to have some problem at some level. But if we had that sort of record, an audio-visual record of these events, we still wouldn't have enough to really say that we could know that somebody died and came back from the dead, because people do all sorts of tricks. People do, what are called magic tricks. And they're illusions, sleight of hand. They do something, but it's not really, they didn't really do the thing. It looked like, it's amazing, but there's a trick to it. And usually it's card tricks. And I watch, Fool Us every now and then. It's like another card trick. I just like, give me something else. But card tricks are a staple of magic because they're easy to manipulate and people know them, and they kind of even seem a bit magical, maybe, I guess. I don't know. But somebody appearing to die and then going into and then having that body delivered into a location that is sealed from the cameras, and then later on that person coming back to life, you could pull that off for a reality show and prank people with it and make it seem very real. And none of it has to be real. It could all be just set up for the audience, to sucker in the audience. Way back when, there was this whole scandal with the game show where it wasn't even a game show. The person knew the answers, and the one person was really a fan of the audience, was really interested and invested in whoever it was, and so that's the person who they would make win. And this whole thing became a scandal, and then rules got into place and all this, because it wasn't right to trick the audience in this way. Reality television is anything but. It's largely fake and fabricated. It's not. They know that the cameras are there, so it's not. At some level, it's not really real, and you know that, and you know that they know that, and so we have this capability of telling stories and of hearing stories and of believing stories during the movie that you watch. Especially, let's say, a scary movie, the gal's going towards the door and you're like, don't open the door, as if she can hear you. And she opens the door, and of course the monster gets her, because you knew the monster was, why did she open the door? Duh, run, get out of the house, go somewhere else, call the police, get out of there, stop being at this, and you're yelling, and of course they don't ever do the thing that makes sense, because that would be the end of the movie. Or if they do the thing that makes sense, it doesn't matter, the scary thing follows them anyways, and they get screwed no matter what, But when the movie's over, you don't go, hey, that movie was really real and really happened. You don't live your life based on if that movie was really true. You could, if you wanted to. You could take, let's say, the movies of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You could take all those movies and you could say, I'm going to live my life based on if those events really happened. I'm going to mirror myself after Captain America. I'm going to take some of Tony Stark because I like some of his stuff, but I'm going to use Captain America as my role model. And I'm going to have some wisdom from the Hulk, and I'm going to, base my bodybuilding on Thor, and, you could do that. And you might have a very good life doing it. And you could pretend it all really happened. And you might even convince other people that it happened. And if you get enough people, you'll have a religion after a while. And then somebody somewhere might write down these events, and later on, somebody might believe them and think that they really happened, even though they didn't. But that doesn't diminish necessarily from the story. If the story didn't really happen, so what? That it doesn't, maybe you don't need faith. Maybe it's not if Jesus didn't come back from the dead, your faith is in vain. Maybe if Jesus didn't come back from the dead, it's because it's just a story, and that's okay, and you don't need faith in the first place. Maybe all you need is yourself, your own self-reliance to say, I am the one that pulled myself out of that depression. I'm the one that got myself through that hard time in life, rather than attributing it to Jesus all the time or God all the time. You attribute it to yourself, and that's self-empowerment, and that could be a very good thing. But maybe the Jesus character could still be important to you, even though you recognized it really is made up, if you wanted Jesus to continue to be important. So, apologist, however, is not going to go through any of that complex nuance that I just did. He's going to pretend like this is all actual history and do it with the worst arguments possible. And before I actually begin the video, which I know I've been delaying, and I apologize, but I do have a method to my madness. I did want to mention the Lazarus syndrome, which you can find described somewhat on Wikipedia and dictionaries or whatever. But essentially, it occurs when they think that the person was dead, they declared them dead, and it turns out they really weren't dead. And now I've said it before. I'm not sure that they do this everywhere. I read it or knew about it at some point. Maybe I'm wrong now, but at any rate, that in the morgue there's strings that are supposed to hang over the beds, and if you yank the string, it sounds an alarm. And that they have this there because sometimes people aren't actually dead. So they need, and in most hospital rooms, you will find a string on the wall that you can pull for the nurse, or even in the bathroom, you find a string, and if you pull it, somebody will come, and sometimes they're even in the stalls. Usually they are. And so, well, that's kind of weird that we would say, hey, that person's dead, and bing, bing, oh, I guess they're not dead. We were wrong. And so when we say come back from the dead, in this particular instance, we're not talking about like that sort of thing, because the death described in these stories is like is actually you're dead. There's like, it's not like we thought he was dead because he didn't have a heart rate or brain waves, but maybe the instruments were not plugged in right, or maybe this or maybe that, but whatever, he wound up in the morgue, and then he pulled the string, and we rushed down there, and the guy's alive. They pierced him and water came out of his lungs. And that's really important, because that's how you tell that somebody's really super dead for sure. Because if there's water in your lungs, you drown. You're dead. And plus, I don't think that poking somebody in the side into their lung would help them to not die. So, and crucifixion is pretty painful. Now, the amount of time that Jesus is on the cross really isn't that much time in the story itself, although you don't really know how much time is supposed to pass. But usually they leave the person hanging there for a long time because it takes a while to die. And so what's happening is you're smothering to death, you're choking to death essentially, because everything's being pulled up, and so you can't breathe, and eventually you die from lack of oxygen, or your heart gives out, or the elements get to you, But and then usually Romans, what they would do after they did that is they just throw the body in with a bunch of other bodies. And so the narrative where there's 3 crosses and it's like you see it on a hill and it's like, oh, it's special. No, if there was 3 executions that day, which I don't know why there'd only be 3, there'd probably be more than that. They'd all just be lined up against the wall like any other day. Nothing special would have been done, but we're told, well, Jesus was really special. Jesus had really irritated the authorities, so they wanted to just shut the Jews up and get them to be quiet, and so they did something that's completely foreign to Roman laws by by executing Jesus for claiming to be king of the Jews, and even though he didn't really say that, yada yada yada, but they wouldn't have treated him differently. They would have, if anything, they would have treated him with more disdain. Of course, and then, of course, you get the whipping of him and the crown of thorns and all this other stuff. I don't think they'd be allowed to do that, but I don't know. Maybe that was practiced. It's hard to say. But regardless, what really happened, we don't know. If there was a person named Jesus and he was put to death by the Romans, he's dead. And then they threw his body in with a bunch of other bodies, and that's the end of the story. But we can't let it be that. Because that was our Savior. That was our main guy. It can't end there. So we're going to continue the story. One last thing. Then I'll get to the video. So this is from part of a debate years ago. What was this? 2009. And this is really good. There's other ones like this out there that may be more or less accurate. I'm not sure. But this is attempting to put the timeline of Jesus to display it. So if you just use the Bible's own internal writings to try to say when what event happened, you get different timelines. Now you've got McDowell's Jesus, so I think that's an apologist or some historian or whatever, I don't know. But anyways, you got Matthew's Jesus, Luke's Jesus, you've got John's gospel, then you have the crucifixion, the conversion, the creed, and then you have when you have a different thing, and then you have a different, and then you have the pilot, and you have all these other things going on. So when did this happen? When did these events occur? And you can't make a coherent timeline with the Gospels. They conflict with each other. There's problems. And the video goes into it better than I could, and so I left the link for that in the description. So the fact that you cannot construct a coherent timeline of Jesus using the Gospels already should indicate that maybe the Gospels aren't very well documented. I mean, they were recording conversations really well. Like, nobody has that good of a memory to remember the exact words that somebody said. And then Jesus said to them, here's a parable, blah, 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 you know. Who the hell's remembering all this? Because you're not told that somebody was writing it down right then at the moment that he's speaking. So did the person that wrote it, like, did they interview everybody? Like, I was there, I heard what he said, but also I want to make sure I got it right. So I'm going to talk to everybody that was there, because we know eyewitness testimony is really bad. But I'm going to make sure I've got the whole story, and I'm going to remember all this somehow in my head, utilizing just my memory. And also you guys are going to do this as well. And we're all just going to keep remembering it, and then we're going to tell it to other people until somebody somewhere eventually writes it down. Yeah, sure. And we're going to get it accurate. And we're going to write down things that we couldn't possibly know about. We're going to write down Jesus going into the desert alone and getting tempted by the tempter, who later becomes Satan. They didn't know. And then you'll have the apologists say, well, Jesus told them afterwards. It doesn't say that Jesus said that. How do you know that? You don't know that. Jesus doesn't seem like the bragging type. Like, hey, guys, by the way, you know, I went on the desert, and, you know, this thing, you don't know about him yet. You will later. I haven't really told you about the devil, guys. Jesus doesn't tell his disciples about the devil, really. So, but anyways, yeah, he tempted me, and I totally beat the test. Just wanted to let you guys know so you could write it down. Nowhere does it say, and I begin to record what Jesus said, or anything like that. Why? There's no signatures. We don't know who these people are. It's anonymous. It's after the event. Now, some make more of a big deal that it's like, I think the earliest is, what, 20 years after the event, 10 years maybe. I think it's, I want to say 10 or 11 years. I think it's the closest of any writings to the actual event itself. But I make the claim that it doesn't matter if it happened on the day, because writing down stuff of what's going on is really difficult. And then describing it accurately is really difficult. And to think that that's not going to change by just interpretation of somebody else reading it, of course it is. So to believe that these stories somehow were preserved intact to any degree already takes tremendous faith. But then to also think that none of these stories got exaggerated at all takes another tremendous faith. And then to believe that Jesus came back from the dead takes more faith than all of that combined, because we have zero evidence that anyone can come back from the dead in that way at all. But let's listen to Pastor and see, maybe he explains all of this and shows how we can know that it really happened, and completely blows away this pesky skeptic with his amazing evidence and arguments. No out of you for me either. I'm an idiot. Thanks, Blaster Master. Thanks, Mr. Nails. let me fix that. That's kind of important. Also, I realized it was sharing the screen in the wrong way anyways, so I'm doing great. This is fun. This is great. Oh man, I almost put my debate in this rather than the damn video that I'm trying to look at. That's brilliant. Man, I'm just screwed. I should restart this. That's what I should do. Okay, no. What's the time index? Was 39:45, 39:45. Okay, so here we go. Now that's there. Let's see. Share screen. Share audio. Let's do that. Chrome tab. There we go. Okay. Let's make sure the volume's all the way up.
Cosmos, embedding it with layers of complexity from the visual to the subatomic level, and then stamping every human heart with an identical moral intuition is not hiding. Nevertheless, I understand the question. And that brings us to the final evidence we're going to briefly touch on the existence of God. There's evidence if you look around you, there's evidence if you look within you, and there's evidence if you look behind you. You look behind you. Now, what does that mean? What are we talking about? We're talking about recorded history. We're talking about taking the time to study the historical facts surrounding the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. Now, I think that's a blank on your outline. I'm not sure. Is that letter A? Yes. Yeah, the historical facts, letter A, surrounding the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And there are historical facts, facts that every sincere seeker must account for. Now, hear this. Historians reached a consensus long ago regarding the existence of Jesus. It's undeniable that this incredible man lived and died in first century Palestine. Every so often, I'll get into a debate or discussion with some internet infidel or someone who'll say, oh, there's no proof Jesus ever existed. If someone ever says that to you, that is evidence A, that they have no idea what they're talking about, and they're in way over their head.
Okay, a lot to cover here. So, first and foremost, what historians? Could you name some names? Because you said this as if it's true. You made a claim. You said historians all agree that Jesus existed. Do they? No, not all historians do agree that Jesus existed. There are a couple, at least, and New Testament scholars, I don't know how you're getting the name scholar, but that say Jesus didn't exist at all. He wasn't even there. Got a couple of those out there. Don't need to name names, but, you know, if you really want to know, I'll find some. I'll find more than just the two that I'm trying to think of because I can't think of their names right now. But anyways, what about other historians? Could you name some for us? Also, if we're going to go with this, then all you have said at best is an appeal to majority. All these people agree. Therefore, it's true. No, that's not how logic functions. All the doctors say that it's true. That doesn't matter. All the insert whatever, that doesn't matter. That's not what makes it true. Now, there's nuance there, as there is with many things. If all the doctors on the planet, with the exception of maybe a handful, are saying that vaccines are a good idea, then vaccines probably are a good idea. But the fact that it's them saying it isn't what makes it true. Nor is it that because they have the authority, they know all this stuff, that makes it true either. No. The evidence is there, and that's what they're talking about. And guess what? You can find that evidence and look at it and maybe even learn how to understand it yourself. And if you avoid the nonsense which is out there, which would probably be a good idea to do at first, because you need to learn the real stuff, and then you can look at the nonsense, you'll see how nonsensical the nonsense is after you understand the real stuff. And then you'll go, yeah, you know, I mean, these people say, oh, mercury, this, and it's like, that was used as a preservative. It was used in very low doses. They don't even use it anymore, you know, and the amount is actually, you know, so insignificant it couldn't possibly hurt you. Oh, it causes autism, association causation failure. No, that's not true. There's no causal relation there. It's never been demonstrated to be a thing. And by the way, you can live with autism. You know what you can't live with? Smallpox. So even if it was true, it's kind of a non-starter, because you're all you're doing is you're saying that, well, I have this fear, and so it's like, well, but you know the damn thing works, right? Like, are you denying that it works, or are you afraid of, or what is it going on? Oh, there's a microchip that they're going to track me. Oh, they're probably already tracking you anyways. Hey, Alexia, I'm afraid that they're going to inject me with a fucking thing that tracks me. What should I do? Hey, Google Assistant, what am I supposed to do? Are they... Hello, if you've got a cell phone, they're already tracking you. Fuck that. If you got a TV, you know what? They're probably tracking everything that I'm doing. If that's the way you want to think. But anyways, okay, I'm a little bit off tangent. A little bit. Oh, right, zombies, right. So back to Jesus, coming back to the... But anyways, we don't have a list of historians. We don't know who he's talking about. Even if he had that list, which he doesn't, and that's a big point, because he just said it as if it's true, that doesn't make it true, but he doesn't have that list anyways. So all we have is a bald assertion. Anyways, as far as people saying Jesus never existed and them being in over their head, no, not at all. They don't have, it depends what they mean too, because there's a couple of different Jesuses. There's a Jesus that appears to be almost mundane. He walks around, he preaches, he says some stuff, and that's it. Pretty mundane. He does a couple miracles here and there, but I'll forgive that. But he's pretty mundane. Then there's the Jesus after that story that walks around and does a whole bunch of miracles. Then there's a Jesus that does way more miracles. And then there's a Jesus who's basically bigger than the Beatles. And that's the Jesus I'm like, no, that Jesus couldn't exist. He couldn't have been that popular. He couldn't have had a whole crowd surrounding a house as they lowered somebody down to get healed by Jesus. He couldn't have been that big of a deal, and nobody else recorded this event. He couldn't have, there's multiple instances where Jesus almost gets stoned to death, but then somehow gets away. No. If they were out to get him, they would have gotten him. He couldn't have gotten away that many times. It's just unlikely. So that larger-than-life Jesus didn't exist. But maybe the more mundane one did. But it doesn't matter. You don't need a Jesus to start the whole thing. You don't. You could make up a character, name him whatever you want, and pretend that he existed, say he died and came back, and you could still start a religion with that. And we know that that's true. We know that that's possible. And we know people that have done things that are, if not exactly like it, they're pretty darn similar. Joseph Smith and the amazing disappearing gold plates. Oh, I found them in the cave. Really? That cave? Yeah, but they're gone now. They got beamed up back to heaven. Really? That's convenient, you know. Or the wild claims of Scientology. Can we go to the volcano where the atom bomb was shoved into? No, because we don't know where that volcano is, and it's probably underground by now, or whatever, you know. You can make all sorts of claims that are completely unfalsifiable. So, no, not all historians agree to this, and depending on what Jesus you're talking about, it might be very coherent to say that Jesus didn't exist. And so the lack of nuance here is not, and this has been the whole point of this series, skeptical thinking. He called the damn series Skeptical Course. This is not skeptical anything. That's what pisses me off more than any of the other things. Is if we were talking skepticism, real skepticism, we would be asking these critical questions about, you know, how do we know that Jesus existed at all? Let's establish that. What is the methodology of history that we're going to be using? Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about when these things were recorded, where, who found the documents, how many were there, who collected them, in what ways did they verify them, what are the, you know, dating methods used to determine how old those documents are. These are skeptical questions. Not, well, all these historians, they all agree that Jesus existed. No, they don't. And also, which ones? And also, even if true, that doesn't make it true. So, no to all that. Back to the video.
It is undeniable. It's not debated amongst historians and even New Testament critics and scholars that Jesus of Nazareth existed. That's not debated. Though anyone who would say otherwise is stuck in the 1800s scholarship. It's a matter of historical evidence. And what surprises many people is that the resurrection of Jesus is equally a matter of historical evidence. And there are essentially 4 established facts recognized by virtually all New Testament critics, scholars, and historians today. And the facts themselves are not in dispute, but these facts attest to the resurrection.
Okay, first, lie. No, not everyone agrees with that. So that's not true. Second, can we get some names? Citation? No, you're just going to say this as if it's true. So it's a bald assertion. This is not skeptical thinking, ladies and gentlemen and robots. Okay, so remember I had already said he's going to go over these 4 things. And I didn't even know he was going to do that. But I said that that's pretty typical. So, nothing new under the sun. I was right.
Of Jesus. What are they? That's next week. Next week, we are going to spend our time looking at these historical facts, and then we're going to look at 2,000 years worth of skepticism. What have atheists and other religions said about these historical facts for the last 2,000 years? And we are going to debunk every one of them. You're going to be shocked at how easily that will be done. So, is there evidence for the existence of God? Absolutely. The truth is out there if you don't suppress it. Look around you, look within you, and look behind you. In fact,
that is not, oh my God. That is so unskeptical. It's not even, if I tried to be, well, no, I maybe I could come up with something, but look around you, look inside you, look behind you. No, that's not a methodology at all. I mean, well, first I have to trust my eyeballs. So before I do that, maybe, just maybe, I might want to go to the eye doctor and say, hey, how good is my vision? Let's find out. I actually should be wearing glasses, but I don't know where the hell they are, so I don't. And also they hurt my head and I gave up on them. So, oh well, but technically I should wear glasses at least when driving, and I don't. So, don't tell though. But I'm gonna get new ones eventually at some point, and then I'll wear them. In fact, I have some pictures and video of me when I went to New York and I was wearing the glasses, and I must say I looked pretty awesome. But with or without glasses, I'm still the most awesome looking person, so I've told myself. That has nothing to do with Jesus' resurrection, but since we're telling lies anyways, I thought I'd throw that in there. Wait a minute, no, that's not what I... Anyways. that's first of all, that's skeptical thinking, okay? Because you're telling me to look, so I want to make sure that my eyes work. That's skeptical thinking. Now you're saying, look around you. Okay, I made sure that my eyes were functioning with the help of somebody that isn't me, that might know what they're doing. And then I go, okay, well, I have whatever vision, 20/20, 20/10, 20, whatever the bleep it is, 5.5, I don't know. Maybe you have to wear glasses, or maybe you are legally blind, but you can still see, and maybe you're colorblind, and there's a test for that. Hey, can I test if I'm colorblind too? Okay, great. Now look around. Okay, now I know my eyes are working and what degree they're working. Now I'm looking around, but that itself isn't skeptical thinking, because I haven't given you a methodology yet. Look around for what? What is it that I am looking around for? What location am I looking around in? Is it just in wherever room I happen to be? Or if I was outside, would it be outside? What am I trying to observe with my eyeballs? And can I also use, like, I don't know, a video camcorder? Why can I do that and observe this as well? Because this can do a better documentation than just my eyeballs and my memory can. So if I'm trying to look for something, why not use this? Use a camcorder or a phone to record, and then look around, observe around you and document the phenomenon that you are observing. And what is it that I'm asking you to document? What is it that I'm asking you to look for? Maybe I'm being vague because it's part of the larger scientific process or part of the experiment that I'm doing. Maybe it's some sort of psychological experiment. But you're going to know that going in, because I'm going to inform you, because it's part of consent, that I inform you that it's a psychological experiment of some sort. Okay? But if I'm not getting, I'm saying, look, go outside with a camcorder or some recording device and rotate it 360 degrees. And what I want you to do then is upload that video to YouTube. And you go, but what for? Just because I said to do it. Now, maybe if you like me enough and you have the ability to do that, you might do it. Just for fun, be like, here you go. I did this for Deconverted Man, and question marks, and I'll be like, I did the thing. Ah! None of you are gonna do it, though. I know none of you are gonna do it. Sorry, but it's still not skeptical thinking, because I haven't given you really a motive to do it. I haven't given you a reason to do it. I haven't given you a methodology. I haven't told you what you're looking for. Those are important things to know. That's skeptical thinking. That's critical thinking. What he's doing, this is like A, B, C, D, look outside. You can see Jesus if you really try. Just look really close at trees. You will find him, you will see. What is the rain? It's Jesus P. Next time, won't you make up a song on the spot with me? Okay, anyways, back to the video.
It takes more effort to ignore evidence for God's existence than it takes to find evidence for God's existence. All right. I want you to take 10 minutes to talk about this around your table, and then at 7:30, we're going to open it up for questions and invite you to go to a microphone. Thank you, folks. Chat about this around your table right now. What do you think? Interact with what we've just talked about for the last few minutes.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. And
now, that's it? That's it? That's the 4 historical facts? Did he even list the, wait, did he even tell us the 4? I think I missed something. I must have missed something.
7:30, we're going to open it up for questions and invite you to talk. It takes more effort to Look around you, look within you, and look behind you. In fact, it takes more effort to ignore evidence for God's existence than it takes to find evidence for God's existence. All right. I want you to take a couple more, take 10 facts recognized by virtually all New Testament critics, scholars, and historians today. And the facts themselves are not in dispute, but these facts attest to the resurrection of Jesus. What are they? That's next week. Next week.
Okay, no, I didn't miss it. Those facts are next week. I'm sorry. Well, I'll spoil it for you because according to the upload schedule of this, the next one will be January 20th, but it's February, so no. The first week was January 13th, which was when this came out. So this is due. Maybe it's out. I don't know. Is it out? Let's look. Let me find, because I might be talking out of my ass. Maybe it's out. Is it out? Let's see. Week 3. Well, there is week 2 and week 3. Oh, they are out. Okay, I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess I can do that. Yay! Yay! I hit everything now. But I could make you wait. But I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to suffer for your sins and my sins. But I kind of want to look at the questions and answers. I don't know. Holy shit. What the? So, because this video is the thing about Jesus, I think that we have to go to the next week, and then I can come back and look at, in a different video, I'll look at the Q&A parts and talk about those and complain more. So, let's get up the second week, which means I'm going to have to link to that. Week 2 was the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, because week 1 was the evidence for the existence of God, which we didn't get. For week 2, we're not going to get the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, and so there's that. Okay, there it is. Let's make sure that I put the sound on when I shared the screen share audio. It should be automatic, but it's not. It's really stupid the way it's built. Okay, skeptic, asking tough questions about the Christian faith. Holy moly, no, you're not even asking non-tough questions. You're asking the most simple stuff. You're not even really asking questions. What questions? You haven't asked a single question. All right, here's this idiot. Don't care, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't call him an idiot. I don't know. Maybe he's smart. I don't know. I haven't listened to him yet. Whatever, blah, 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 blah. None of this matters. Let's get to when he talks about the thing. Okay, here we go. There we go. There we go. Come on, get to the thing.
Jesus.
Now, I'm a little...
Yay, I found the part where he talks about the thing. Okay, so we're back on track. Everything is good. We're going to pretend that I know what I'm doing. And let's get back to this so I can complete. And
a little bit concerned of, we've got a gym full of people here, something like 32 tables, and the only table I see that's empty is the one right in front of me. Now, I warned them last week they might be in the spit zone, and apparently that happened, perhaps. I'm not sure. But so if they come in late and you see them, don't boo them, don't hiss them, welcome them, okay? Well, welcome to you as well. Thanks for coming back for week 2. I am really looking forward to what we're going to be talking about for the next few moments. Now, parents sat down with their 8-year-old child and they said, son, we need to have a talk. We need to tell you about the birds and the bees. And the little boy stood up. He said, no, wait, sorry, this is not going to happen. First, you sat me down a while ago, he said, and you said, son, we need to have a talk about Santa Claus. And you told me there is no Santa Claus. And then, and if you have any children here, that's between you and your children. And then he said, and then you sat down with me and said, we need to have a talk about the tooth fairy. And you told me, son, there is no tooth fairy. And then you sat me down, you said, we need to have a talk about the Easter bunny. And you said, son, there is no Easter bunny. And now you're telling me that you have to talk about the birds and the bees. If you tell me the birds and the bees don't exist, I can't handle that.
What the hell are you talking about? What does any of that got to you? Huh? Talk about Jesus' resurrection. What are the 4 facts? What are the 4 facts? What's in the box? What's in the box? Sorry. Hey, I'm the only one that can go on tangents, okay? He's not allowed to go on tangents. Oh, that's my job, damn it.
Well, this course is designed for skeptics and friends of skeptics. And
this course is designed for skeptics. I'll be with you in a moment. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It's designed for like preschoolers or something. This is the stupidest course of all. This is the bare bottoms apologetics that I've heard a bazillion times. This is nothing. This is designed for crap. This is not a good course, Pastor. It's not even original. You don't even present the arguments in a good way. Not that they're good arguments. You suck at this. Anyways, back to the video.
Designed to address some nagging questions around the issues of God and faith. So let's quickly remind ourselves of the terrain that we've traveled so far. Last week, we talked about evidence for the existence of God, and we learned 4 key things. We learned that God is the best explanation for the existence of the universe. We learned that God is the best explanation for the fine-tuning of the universe. We learned that God is the best explanation for the existence of objective moral values and duties. And we learned that God is the best explanation for the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
I really shouldn't have yelled that loud. I wore myself out a bit. Okay, and I'm sorry if I blew out your eardrums. Because I'm trying to be funny for you guys and girls and robots. I don't know. You tell me. All right, so to recap, no you didn't, no you didn't, no you didn't, and no you didn't. So no. This is weird. The best explanation thing. I don't know how you even how do you figure out that? Okay. So what's the best explanation for this red thing? What's the best explanation for this? Now, you could say, well, it's something that I bought. It's manufactured. It's a toy. It's, but those are but what's the best what does that even mean? What do you mean explanation? What does that even mean? Like, no, I'm getting, because that's, see, you know what I'm doing though? I'm asking a skeptical question. I'm saying, what do you mean by explaining? Because are you explaining the thing's origin? Are you explaining the thing, how it's manufactured, what fabrics it's made out of? I cut the tag, so I have no idea where it was made. Probably China. I didn't know it could squeak until lately. That was funny when I found that out. It's from a video game. I think, like, it's like this thing is in a video game and I don't remember what video game it's from or anything. I just thought it looked cute and that's why I wanted it. And then it lives over here on my computer. And then I just bring it over here and I use it as a prop. And so, you know, and there's some other stuff over here too. See all this stuff? Yeah, I can use any of that for props. So when you say explanation for X, you need to tell me what you mean by that. So also having the best doesn't, you know, have a explanation. Then I have a bad explanation. I have a good explanation. I have the best. So now you're quantifying degrees of explanation. Either it explains it or it doesn't. How about that for an idea? Let's not make it any more complicated than it actually needs to be. Either we understand the damn thing or we don't understand the damn thing. That seems pretty simple. That would be the lowest tier of a way to say, okay, we're going to figure out we're going to try to describe the Rubik's Cube. We're trying to explain, let's pretend that somebody has never seen a Rubik's Cube before. And so, and you can't just show them a Rubik's Cube either. We're going to pretend that not only have they never seen one, they've never held one, they've never, they have no idea what it is. So you're just like, okay, well, first you have a cube, and it's like, okay, and then you're able to manipulate parts of this cube and all this. And so you're really getting into the nitty-gritty of trying to explain to them the form, the functionality, the utilitarian methodology of it. You know, you could talk about the mathematics of how to mix it or solve it, or you could discuss its colors, and you could go on and on. You could write papers, and people have written papers about the Rubik's Cube, and you can learn to solve it very quickly, and people win money doing that. And you know, they solve it in seconds. I saw this one where the epic fail, where the guy's like, and like he's done it in like 0.001 second, but he didn't hit the button because you're supposed to like hit a button when you're done solving it, and he didn't hit it, and then he realized he didn't hit it. And so when he did hit it, that's his actual time, even though his actual time isn't that. It's like so he failed the world record, and he just, you'd see in his face where he wanted to die in that moment, you know? So if we're going to say an explanation of phenomenon X, okay, well then what's the methodology? What is it exactly? How are we describing it? What detail? I mean, like, how detailed do we want to be? Like, are we going to go, down to like the sort of plastic that the Rubik's Cube is made out of? Maybe I want you to tell me the elements and how many molecules are in a Rubik's Cube and what its dimensions are, and all this. And then you have a full picture, okay? If you can get the person that's never seen the Rubik's Cube to be able to draw out what the damn thing looks like without showing them a picture of it or anything, just verbally describing it to them, then you've succeeded in your goal. You've succeeded in your task. And that's a very skeptically minded exercise to go on. Of course, you have to find some person that's never seen a Rubik's Cube, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. But when you say you have the best explanation, all you're really saying is, I have a way to answer the question. Where did it come from in regards to the universe? And you say, God. And then, well, why is there morality? God. What about this? God. But if you ask the same questions about God, you get question marks again. Where did God come from? God didn't come from anywhere. So that's a question mark. It's like, well, how does that work? How does God exist? What is it to be God? Where does God's morality come from? God's morality is its nature. Why is its nature that? Why isn't it a different nature? There's another question mark. All the question marks that you think are exclamation points are simply moved. That's all you're doing. You're simply moving the goalpost over. And then you're saying, we have the answer, but you don't. Magic also explains all the things. And I could say it's the best explanation with the same level of critical thought that this guy is doing. And if you reject magic as an explanation, even if you're somebody that happens to believe in similar things that this guy does, but if you say, no, magic is not the explanation for the universe, why would you say that? What methodology did you use to determine that magic is not the explanation? What underpinning are you using to say that magic isn't even a thing in the first place? That's skeptical thinking right there. But we're not going to do any of that.
Oh, it's that last one I promised you that we would elaborate on a bit. So tonight we're going to complete that final point from last week's presentation, that God is the best explanation for the events surrounding the resurrection of Jesus. Now, so far the evidence that we presented argues for the existence of a morally good, incredibly powerful, unfathomably intelligent creator of the universe who exists eternally outside of space and time. Now, this describes the God of all three of the world's monotheistic religions, the God of Christianity, the God of Judaism, and the God of Islam. But tonight's teaching takes an important turning point, because tonight's teaching will eliminate two of those options, leaving us with only one remaining option. So what's the evidence for the existence of Jesus Christ? Can a rational, grounded, facts-based individual be a proponent of what we'll call the resurrection hypothesis? So let's look at the historical facts as modern scholarship knows them. Now, although I fully believe the Bible, which is often referred to as God's Word, I fully believe the Bible to be God's Word to us and inspired and inerrant. For the sake of our presentation this evening, I am not treating the New Testament as a set of inspired holy scriptures. I'm not going to do that. What I mean is, I'm not going to give the New Testament any special treatment this evening. Instead, this evening, I am treating the New Testament documents as modern scholars and historians treat them, as simple, ancient documents that have been handed down and need to be tested, verified, and scrutinized. Now, we need to realize something. Maybe for some of you, this may be new. When we talk about the Bible, let's just focus on the New Testament for tonight. When we talk about the New Testament half of the Bible, it's not one book per se. Even the Bible itself is not one book. The Bible is a whole bunch of different books and letters and manuscripts compiled together in one volume. So it's like, it's 66 different books with many different authors, and their works have all been combined into one volume called the Bible, broken up into the Old Testament or the Old Contract and the New Testament or the New Contract. Okay? Now, many who are unfamiliar with the state of New Testament scholarship have the mistaken impression that the textual reliability of the New Testament documents is somehow suspect. I've heard it many times over the years. Oh, the Bible, it's a dusty old book that's been translated so many times that we've lost the meaning. We don't even know what it originally said. It's been translated so many times. In fact, people will often say, Darren, it's like the old game of telephone. You ever played the game of telephone? Where, you line people up on the stage, and the person at this end, you whisper something into their ear, and then they have to immediately whisper it into the next person's ear, and the next person. And as you go down the line, what ends up at the end of it all is completely different than what they said at the beginning. And they say, that's like the Bible. This thing's been translated so many times over the centuries. Who knows what the original authors said? Well, in reality, nothing could be further from the truth. And let me illustrate that fact with a comparison that I've provided for you on your outlines tonight. Now, on your outlines, we've got essentially these headings, I believe. You've got writings. I think I called it writings. I don't remember. Writings are in the books. And then we've got the original. So when was the original document written? Then we've got the earliest copy. When was the earliest copy? Then we've got the gap. We'll see what that means in a moment. And then we've got number of copies. Those are our headings. And this is a fascinating comparison. Simon said, what a good drawer I am. Look at this. This is without rulers. That's incredible. Well done, Darren. Okay. Now, when history professors quote from the writings of Aristotle, let's say, okay? So that we've got that first one, Aristotle. When history writers quote from the writings of Aristotle, they don't doubt that Aristotle actually wrote the words that they're teaching and reading.
What? How do you know that? I mean, no. How do you know that they don't doubt that? Okay. Plus, tangent, red herring. What does this have to do with Jesus? Can we talk about that? What about the 4 facts you mentioned that we were going to learn about this week? I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me about the 4 fucking facts. I think y'all would have opened with the 4 facts. That's just me, but I don't know. So Aristotle. Here's the thing. We don't know if he existed. I know. Amazing. And I love Aristotle. Don't get me wrong. He's my man because he basically invented the thing that I love, which is logic. Although he didn't invent informal logic, and I don't really know who did invent informal logic offhand, but whoever that person is, I probably love a little bit more than Aristotle. But we don't know if the guy existed. We know that somebody wrote about Aristotle saying stuff, and we know that Aristotle wrote about other things. Well, we don't know that Aristotle wrote anything, actually. We only know that somebody wrote about Aristotle writing stuff. So we don't actually know the thing that he's saying that we know. Now, maybe Aristotle existed. Maybe he did write it down. I don't know. And there's debate about it. Yes, amazing. There is still debate about this historical figure. But there's a huge difference between Aristotle and Jesus. Aristotle, when he died, stayed fucking dead. Aristotle was a good boy, you see. He understood that when you die, you're supposed to stay dead. That's the rules. I didn't make the rules up. I don't know who did. If anybody made the rules up, maybe nature made the rules up. Maybe God made the rules up. But the rules are the rules, and Aristotle followed the rules. When he died, he stayed dead. Jesus, however, broke the rules because he's a naughty boy, and Jesus came back to life, and that makes Jesus completely different than Aristotle. So, your comparisons are relevant, and also the thing that you said that everyone believes Aristotle wrote the things. It's not true. No, not everybody believes that. Anyways, so yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, credited with formal logic. Yeah. Aristotle did formal logic. But yeah, I mean, he started it. I mean, he didn't make the whole thing, but he started that. Okay, maybe somebody else did, but he gets the credit. Whatever. Anyways, back to this stupid thing.
And for good reason. Now, do we have the original documents that Aristotle wrote? No, of course not. He wrote, thousands of years ago. And so well, over 1,000 years ago, in fact, over a couple thousand years ago, as we'll learn in a moment. So we don't have the original. What the historiographers call the autograph. We don't have the original document that Aristotle wrote. Of course not. It was written hundreds and many centuries ago, and on papyrus probably. It's decayed, it's decomposed by now. It's gone. Okay, so we don't have the original. So, but when did he actually write the original is the question we want to know. And he wrote the original somewhere between 384 and 322 BC. Okay, that's your blank there. He wrote the original somewhere between 384 and 322 BC. Okay? So, of course, we don't have the original. We only have copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. Okay? But the earliest, the original was written then. The earliest copy we have is dated 1100.
Okay, so my primary goal in this series, examining this series, other than to drive myself completely insane and provide you with entertainment, hopefully, as I do so. Why the hell am I doing that? Anyways, is to showcase the lack of skepticism in the course that he decided to call Skeptical Course, because of course he did. Course of a course, it's not a course. Oh, anyways. How do you know when Aristotle wrote that? You gave us dates from this period of time to this period of time. Okay. What was the methodology utilized to determine that Aristotle would have written whatever he wrote in those dates? Now, there's an answer to that question, and I'm fairly sure if I Google it hard enough and long enough, and I look at the right places, or even maybe some of the wrong places, I'll find an answer to how we get that. But that's not the point. The point is, he that is supposed to be holding a course that he's elevated to the level of skepticism is not explaining the methodology utilized to determine what dates that the person wrote the thing in would have written in them. How do we know those dates? How were those determined? How about some information about that? No? Let's just move on. Okay.
AD. Okay? So do we have the original written, between 384 and 322 BC? No, lost. We have copies of copies of copies, but the earliest copy we have is 1100 AD, okay? Which is a gap of 1,400 years. So there's 1,400 years between the original one, which is lost, and the earliest copy that we have, okay? A gap of 1,400 years. However, why historians feel pretty secure that when you read Aristotle's writing, you're reading what he wrote, is because we have 49 copies. Now, 49, that's a good number, because and by the way, the bigger this number is, the better. Why? Because the more copies you have, the more you can compare the other copies to see which ones are saying the same thing. For example, let's imagine that everyone left this room and you all left your skeptic booklets behind, okay? And next week, different people come in and they want to know, what did Darren teach last week because the recordings didn't work? So what did he teach? Well, we could look at the copies of the manuscripts that you leave behind. Now, some of you aren't paying attention because you're on your phones and you're not writing down the right words. Some of you are writing the right words, but maybe with the wrong spelling. And some of you are copying exactly what I've written down because you're incredibly intelligent. Either way, what they could do is they could gather in, they could look at all of your copies, and they could compare, and they could say, of the few 200 people, whatever, here, 180 of them all had Aristotle and these numbers, and a couple had some different things. So the more copies you have, the better it is because you can compare, okay? So 49 copies, a gap of 1,400 years. Historians look at that and say, you know something? we feel pretty solid that, that when you read Aristotle, you're reading a good representation of his words, even though we don't have the original, of course. Perhaps the most widely attested non-religious ancient document would be the Iliad by Homer. Not Homer Simpson, but Homer, the famous author, okay? When was this was written? It was written in 900 BC.
Okay, we're going to skip through all this because, as I said, didn't give us a methodology at all. Again, when did he write? How do you know when he wrote it? What's the methodology you're using to determine when Homer wrote anything? Not going to tell us that. And the copy thing, okay, well, we'll get to that, and there's a lot of copies and whatever. Okay. Yeah, there's problems with how he said it, okay? But I'm no historian. So all I can do is tell you how, let's see, if I was to go into that room and start gathering up all the different pamphlets to try to determine what the teacher was teaching that day, and I'm relying on, and if I didn't have what's on the chalkboard for whatever reason, I didn't have his notes, I just had the booklets, that the mighty booklet that I've already made fun of. I'll make fun of it again, probably again, because it's so dumb and so poorly written, I have to make fun of it. It's in my contract. Why not? I made up a contract just now. And if I was to try to figure out what he was teaching from that, I might be able to, maybe, but I also might not be able to. Relying on that is not the sort of precision that I would like to have, but it's all we have to go on. So it's the best that we can. Now, what would be great is to find some sort of artifact that he left behind that would help confirm that he taught the class, whatever. You know, things that would compound with the writings as well and say, oh yeah, this guy actually existed. Oh, by the way, we found, his birth record. So we know, that he actually, we found his pastorate certificate, and we found the log that puts him here, and we know what sort of things he normally, so we'd have other evidence that we could pour into it, okay? But at the end of the day, when looking at history, to be skeptical to some degree of history would be okay. I know, it's amazing, but it's okay to be a little bit skeptical of history. Now, how far you take that skepticism can be a problem. You should not be so skeptical that you actually wind up believing stuff. So what does that mean? Like, I've read arguments about Holocaust denial, and they usually are like, well, where's all the bodies? They're buried in a mass grave. Well, but you have to prove that by showing all the bones. That's a little bit ridiculous to demand. It's like, there's the mass grave right there, and some of them we don't know where they are. We don't know where all the mass graves are, so it would be impossible to dig up those bodies. And you're asking us to dig up the remains of people that have living relatives and things like this. It's just not appropriate, and that's really not the burden of proof. Is not upon them to really demonstrate this at this point. I mean, I think it's pretty solid history that this happened. But for the person that they said, well, I haven't seen the bodies, don't believe that there's bodies, and they've entered a belief now. They've gained a belief that they didn't have before. So they went too far with what we call skepticism. And when you begin to gain beliefs, that's when you're no longer being a skeptic. So why would somebody lie about there being a whole bunch of bodies buried somewhere? I don't know. What's there to gain from it? And, if I can't find ready answers, then maybe this is something that I'm not really being skeptical. Okay, Abraham Lincoln actually existed. Why would I think he didn't exist? There's no reason I can think of to think he didn't exist. But there was a movie where Abraham Lincoln fought a bunch of zombies. Now, I'm pretty sure that didn't really happen in history, because zombies don't really exist. And I'm pretty sure that zombies don't really exist because zombies don't really exist. How do I know that? Well, we have no examples of zombies at all, ever demonstrated to be a thing. Pretty sure it would have been big news, but you could start to believe that, well, the government's hiding the existence of zombies. They don't want people to panic. But what about C-19? Shut up. They don't want to. That's the zombie thing. Like, where are all the zombies hiding? Like, look, the government knows. That's what's in Area 42 or whatever. Of course, Area 2, that's a red herring for where the real information is stored. You're never going to find where that's at, by the way. So you gain these beliefs to justify the story that you're creating about the zombies. There really are zombies. The government's hiding it. And so therefore, Abraham Lincoln could have fought the zombies because they really do exist. And I don't have proof that the zombies existed, but there's a whole movie. Why would they make all this movie about it? Oh yeah, at the end they say that this isn't based on real events, but they just added that in because the government forced them to say that. And that level, that's no longer skeptical thinking. That's conspiracy. No, I don't want to say conspiratorial thinking. It's just because there are certain conspiracies that are real, but usually you have a whistleblower, you have somebody that came out with the information, and there's all this evidence that they have that is true. There are certain narratives in today's world and that don't seem to align with what facts are known. Epstein might be a pretty damn good example of this. So, did he kill himself? That's what we were told. But do I think he killed himself? Nope. And I'm a skeptic. I mean, I'm a jaded skeptic. But why? Well, there's just too many weird things, but I cannot tell you what actually happened, because that would be a narrative and that would require me to gain beliefs. I know he's dead, or at least I guess he's dead. I don't think that claiming that he was dead but him being alive would be advantageous. And that seems to be a belief that I'd have to gain, so I don't want to gain that belief. It seems to be that he's probably dead. Okay. He had a lot of political enemies. That's for sure. He had a lot of people that would like to see him dead. That's for sure. Then he's a high-level risk at a prison that's pretty damn good. And what we find out is sometime after he, after it's learned that he killed himself, we find out some interesting things about this prison, that it has cameras, and they were monitoring the people, and for some reason the cameras just happened to go out at this time when he killed himself. That's kind of a odd thing to happen. And then all these other oddities happen, and the guards weren't in the right place and all this. But I can't tell you, well, obviously it's, insert name here that did it, and here's how they did it, because all that would require me to add beliefs. Does disbelieving that he killed himself, is that a belief? Maybe. Is it reasonable with the given knowledge that we have? To some degree, maybe, maybe not. And so it's one of these sort of good examples of we have something that's really weird, and there are going to be those who have all sorts of stories about this, I'm sure. And there will be things talked about it for hopefully a long time, because it was a big deal. And it was kind of glossed over. Once he was dead, that was the end of the investigation. That's kind of odd. Okay, you can make something out of that. But maybe you shouldn't, because you want to stay a skeptic and you go, look, if I don't have the evidence, then it's pure speculation. And that might be fun, but you got to be careful not to start to believe your own speculation. So I'm using that as an example of, here is something where skeptical thinking and reasoning comes into play, and you go, okay, this is what we were told. He killed himself. Seems like maybe he did. Is an explanation. Is it the best explanation? Well, I don't know. But I don't buy it, because all these other counterfactuals seem to cause me to question it. But I can't say he didn't really do it. I can only say I don't really believe that he did, but I can't tell you what really happened. And the same, but I actually have examples of people being killed for things, political reasons in the past, as a good example of this kind of thing can happen. And it can happen in any political system at any time, and it has in the past. And he didn't come back from the dead and fly out of prison, so I don't have any reason to doubt the stories being told, per se. They don't have mythical or magical elements to them. So it's different, but you're not there. You're utilizing skeptical thinking, and you're going, okay, here's what we actually know. Here are the things that we were told. Here are the things that we can know. Here's the things that we can verify. And here's all the rest of the data. And somewhere the truth lies, but maybe we can't access it because we just don't have all the stuff in one place. And that's an event that happened recently. And we don't know for sure what happened. So how much greater is it when we go back further in time and further in time and further in time? So yeah, it's absolutely okay to be skeptical of the past to a degree. But we have to be careful with how skeptical we are. But our skepticism should be reasonable. If Aristotle was flying around creating anime girls, I would love him even more, but I would doubt that he existed, because I don't know anybody with those powers. If I ever meet somebody with those powers, that'd be pretty awesome. Yeah. But it's not a thing that I think can happen. I've never seen it happen, so I don't think that it is a thing. So that Aristotle, the Aristotle that created anime girls, could not have existed. I doubt that Aristotle's existence, because I have no example of the magical things that are being claimed. Okay, so there's a big difference. Okay, so numbers. Do we ever get anywhere interesting? Let's see. Sorry. Big tangent, I know.
How do the New Testament documents stand up? How does the New Testament stand up against other accepted ancient documents? Here's the most recent scholarship I could find, and these dates were from March of 2018 is the most updated information I have here. And this is the most conservative that I could be, so I'm not making this as best as possible. The New Testament documents were written somewhere between 45 and 95 AD, okay? 45 and 95 AD. The earliest copies we have were written between 125 and 200 AD. Do we have, by the way, do we have the originals that Paul and the original Gospels? No, we don't. Of course not. They're a couple thousand years old. They're disintegrated. But the earliest copies that we have were written 125 to 200 AD, which is, we'll say, about a 150-year gap. Not 1400. Not 500, 150. Okay? Now, how many copies do we have? Well, when it comes to the New Testament manuscripts, we have and I'll explain this number in a moment, between 5,000, estimate 5,900 and 24,000 copies. Say, how can you have such a huge gap? I'll explain that in a second. Between 5,900 and 24,000 copies. The difference is, it depends on the language you're talking about. If we're talking about ancient Greek manuscripts, which is what the New Testament was written in originally, we have 5,800 and what is it? 56 to be specific. Last 5,856 to be specific copies in ancient Greek. And in other languages like Coptic, Syrian, Latin, and Aramaic, we have 24,000 of those that have been found over the centuries. Folks, the simple truth is that the New Testament is the best attested document in ancient history, both in terms of the number of manuscripts and the nearness of the copies to the original.
Okay. Now, it's pretty impressive because he's saying here's historical documents, and then here's these historical documents, and we have more, so that's cool. We're doing better than these other ones are. But you showed us 2 examples of ancient documents. That's not all of the ancient documents, is it? There's other ancient documents out there, right? So, has anyone made a list of all the ancient documents that we know about and compared them using this chart? If not, then you cannot say that it's the most well-attested thing, because you don't know that. You assume that that's the case, but unless you can demonstrate that it's the case, then you got nothing but a bald assertion. Man, we keep having bald assertions everywhere. Maybe because he doesn't have a lot of hair. No, a bald assertion is just it's a baseless assertion. It's something you utter but has no proof to it, no validity to it. So also you're trying to say that because this thing has all of this, then that gives it more weight. But the problem is those other documents do not contain mythical elements. So you cannot treat this the same way. It doesn't surprise me that there are many recordings of these stories. How many different stories might we find other places where stories proliferated if we look at other religions? Ah, didn't bring that up. Interesting. But the gap and all this, I can do you better. If you really want to use the same system, The Lobsterist, which is a book that I might or might not have written, was written not that long ago. I don't know, a few years back. Now, it's got 1 copy, but that copy technically is infinite because it's online and anyone can download it. So, technically, I'm going to say I have infinite copies of it because you could download it, you could print it, I could print a bazillion copies, you could print however many copies, and we could flood the world with copies of the damn thing. Would that make it more attested to than the Bible? Yeah. But that doesn't make it true. That's what matters. Not how many copies of the writings you have, but whether or not the damn thing is true. Let's not make any mistake. When considering historical event, A, B, C, or D, it doesn't matter if you have, oh my word, we have, it happened, it was recorded today, we're looking at it today. Okay, it was recorded a moment ago. Let's say it was recorded an hour ago, okay, but it happened, and and we're looking at the damn recording. We don't just turn off our skeptical thinking. Well, we have 1,000 recordings of the same event from different angles, and we saw the guy levitate. He must have levitated. No, there was 1,000 people there. They all saw the guy levitate. That doesn't matter either. They're all willing to die for it. I don't care. It looks like he levitated. Is he willing to do it again under controlled conditions? No, he said it was a one-time deal. Why? Well, then I don't think he actually levitated. I think he did some sort of trick. It was an illusion. But we didn't see how he did it. We're pretty sure. I mean, we looked. Can you see how he did it? Can you see the wires? No. Maybe he used magnetics. No, we're pretty sure. You're not having the person do it again in a controlled environment where we can eliminate all the possibility of fraudulence, of trickery. So it's bullshit. The mystical elements of these writings are not something that we have ever observed to be things that can happen for real. Turning water to wine, you could do that, but it's going to be a trick. I saw, again, Penn and Teller fool us and other things like this. The guy poured out tea, and he poured out coffee, and he poured out hot chocolate, and he poured out something else, all out of the same damn thing. And it's like, how the hell did he do that? Well, because the thing is there's a trick to it. It's a gimmick. There's many compartments in that thing. I saw this other guy, he did this thing with water in this giant bowl, and he's like spinning it around, and he keeps throwing the water, and it's splashing. And it's like, there shouldn't be any water left, but he's still got plenty of water. How did he do that? It's a trick of some sort, and just I don't know how. But if I was able to examine it under controlled conditions, I could figure it out. And of course, Penn and Teller, they know a lot of these, how these tricks are done. And the whole point is to fool them, is to do something in a way that they don't know how it's done. But you could, if you examined it right there on top of the guy, and you actually followed it, and whatever, and you really put in controls, you could find out how it was done, because it's a trick. There's an explanation for it. So turning to water to wine, it could be done as a trick. How about producing lots of food from a very small food source? Well, that's a little bit harder, but if you have big robes, maybe you could conceal a lot of food in the robes. And you could start handing out food, and it might seem like to the people that the food's coming from nowhere. So there's another trick that you could pull off. Well, what about the blind person? Well, okay, there's a couple different passages of Jesus healing blind people. One of them is really weird. He rubs dirt on their eye. Like, why did Jesus? And he spits, and then he like rubs dirt on their eye or something. He's like, okay, what the hell is he doing there? Seems like there's something going on there. Okay, so maybe that's part of the trick, because the guy wasn't completely blind, but he was only partially blind, and by mixing some dirt and saliva, that kind of gives him like temporary glasses of the sort or something. I'm not saying that is the explanation, but I'm saying maybe that's how the trick was pulled off. Maybe the guy had heard that Jesus was going around healing people, and he's not quite all the way blind, but he's blind enough, or maybe he's just pretending to be blind, or who knows. Well, what about the deaf guy? Same thing. And you've had televangelists hold their hands on the person's head and go, "Can you hear me?" "Oh, they can hear me. It's a miracle." Well, yeah, they can hear you because your voice is vibrating through your hands. So maybe Jesus did tricks like this. Well, but he walked on water. Come on. Well, but only the disciples saw that. So they might have just made that up. But I did see a magician walk across water. And, well, he used something that was under the water, but they were way out at sea. We don't know how far out at sea they were. And even if they were far out at sea, maybe there was something that Jesus could have stood on. I don't know. Maybe there was a coral there or some rocks. I don't know. But there is a plausible, possible way that all of the miracle things that happened are some sort of elaborate trick that Jesus pulled off. I don't think he did do those tricks. I think that it's more plausible that another, well, I don't want to say more plausible, but another explanation is that a story was told and the story grew in time, and we know that legends grow. And we don't need that much time for a legend to grow exponentially. It can just be told in a big way and believed immediately. But we do have a long time from when the when the story started circulating to when they finally got written down. That's long enough for legends to develop, way longer than what you need. How long was it between when Dianetics was written and the Church of Scientology was founded? Not very long. Joseph Smith, how long between his claims and the foundation of the Mormon Church? Not very long. There's a guy that he got arrested a while back. He was claiming to be the reincarnation of Jesus. Had a whole bunch of followers in Russia. How long did it take him between when he started making the claims and got the following? I don't know. Not very. It doesn't take long for people to buy into woo. And there's this wonderful documentary. I can't remember his name, like Kumar or something. I forget how. I'll link to it in the description later. But it's this guy. He pretends to be a guru, and he starts going around doing yoga classes, and he builds a cult following, and it doesn't take him that long at all. And he gets wrapped up into it so much that when he plans to reveal it to everybody, he chickened out. Not to spoil the documentary for you, sorry, but that's the sort of cognitive dissonance that can happen even to the founder of the damn thing. And how easy it is for him to have just given in to his own lies and bought into it. Because all these people are adoring you, worshiping you, following you, listening to your every word. That's a lot of power to have. But to treat this mythology as equal to actual history is to do a disservice to actual history. And that's my point. This isn't skeptical anything. Back to the video. Yeah.
In fact, modern reconstructions of the New Testament text have been done, and it has now been firmly established by scholars and historians that, and here's the number, the official number, 99.8% of the New Testament that you have today is what was originally written 2,000 years ago. We have an accuracy today of 99.8% to the original documents. Think in these terms. There are 130.
No, you don't. And I'm no good at math, so if anyone wants to check his math, please do and let me know if he's even right about that number. But no. Also no.
38,000 words. 138,000 Greek words in the New Testament. When you add up every word in the Greek New Testament, 138,000 words. And of those 138,000 words, scholars are absolutely certain of 136,600 of them. Absolute, no doubt, about 136,600 of them. There.
Okay, I think you could probably predict what I'm going to say next and be pretty accurate about it. What scholars? Who said that? When? Where? Who are these people that say this? Why does that matter? What's their methodology? All right, I'm looking at the time index here. I've been going for an hour. And you know what's interesting? Remember those 4 facts he said he was going to lay on us? He hasn't done that yet. We had a comment here. I just want to highlight it because I think it is spot on if I can find the damn thing. There he is. You would think he'd be shouting those facts at the top, those facts at the top of a mountain. I think you meant to say you would think he'd be shouting those facts at the top of his lungs from a mountain or something. You know what, Blaster Master? I get what you're saying, but you said it wrong. So -1 lobster point. I'm sorry, but good news, you get +1 lobster point for being in the chat. You can gain more lobster points by commenting on the video once it finishes and is an actual video. So if you want to, you can redeem these lobster points never, but you just have them. So that's good. And Germania has negative 5,445 lobster points. That's just what he has. Anyways, so thank you if you've listened to all of this or part of it or whatever. Thank you for doing so and your time and energy. We will pick up again whenever I feel like it. I don't know. I don't upload on any sort of schedule because that's not the sort of thing I do. This is, if you're interested, the time index right now is 20 minutes and 8 seconds for the original video. So if you wanted to go and listen to that, so covered week 1 of everything he did throughout the past series here, and now we're moving into week 2 of this. And so I got to write this guy and see if I can get him to come on and talk to me. But he did suggest that he wanted to do that after the entire presentation is out. But I'll see what I can do. But no, who knows? Probably he won't. I wouldn't be surprised. Conclusions so far would be that this sort of contrasting comparison that he's doing is not equivalent. If he wanted to make equivalence comparisons, he should have used ancient documents from other religions. That's what he should have done, and showed how many copies those had and things like that. That would have been a more honest comparison than using the secular secular historical documents. So I don't think that this is a fair comparison, and I'm not even sure that it is the most attested to thing that there is that we have. Maybe it is. I don't know, and I don't. But I do know that he doesn't know that either, because if he did, we would have some sort of citation to that, and there is none. Now, comments are currently look like they're open, but they might be by approval and they might get turned off. So if you want to comment on the original video, yeah, I'm going to say lobsters. If that works, let's see. So if you see my comment over there that says lobsters, give it a thumbs up. But more importantly, give this video a thumbs up. Comment on the video. Tell people, hey, ᵒᵒᵃ, he's a thing. Go watch him, because that will make me feel cool, and I'll like you more, and you'll get lobster points. Also, if you haven't yet bought my book, please buy my book, and maybe if you have the time to do so, maybe you could give me a little review on it, or a big long review. And hey, if you want to say bad things about it, I can take it, maybe. So let me know. anyways, and if you're interested in getting lobster points, I'll tell you how to do that for the low cost of $800. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in again, subscribe, bell, blah, 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 all the things. Thanks to Hanson, Blaster Master, Gurmania, Brian, and did I leave anybody out? No, I got everybody that was in chat. And ᵒᵒᵃ, thank you, whoever that insane guy is. Bob is the most crazy guy in the world that I know. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. Go subscribe to Steven. I can't pronounce his last name, so never mind. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to end now before I completely lose my mind. It's too late. I've already lost my mind.